Okay, this is what I call a frequently confused words question. And it should be obvious why it's called that, right? We look at this and we see that affect with an A and affect with an E are both in here. They sound pretty much the same, but you probably know that there's a difference. Maybe you've been typing a paper at some point and it's the word processor has tried to correct you, or your teacher's written a note to you. You know there's a difference, but you might not know what the difference is. And in general, frequently confused words questions are very frustrating because there's a lot of words in English that get confused with each other. My study guide has an exercise that's like 50 questions long, and even that might not be enough because they can test so many things here. So this is just where experience with the language is going to help you. But I will say this particular rule, affect and effect, does come up a little bit more often than many of the others. So it's a good one to make sure you bookmark and have for the future to study with. So let's see how we would decide. First and foremost, with these questions, we can almost always decide to get rid of a couple choices based on the small words at the end of the choice. Usually there's something that just sounds off. So let's read the sentence and see if we can hear any sort of problem. In truth, the agency has a widespread positive effect on society by serving as a catalyst for innovation and scientific understanding. Okay, so effect on sounds kind of good. Effect to society, a positive effect to society, that sounds kind of weird. So that one's probably wrong just the way it sounds. Same thing with D. It has a widespread positive effects on society. That S there it just sounds kind of gross in my mouth. So that's not a good sign. Trust your instincts for at least part of these, right? There's an element of instinct here. And then there's going to be an element of rules. And that's why these are tricky, is we're kind of mixing two things that usually don't mix on the SAT. So what is the rule? Because now we've got a clear decision between affect with an A and affect with an E. Well, here's the rule. Affect with an A is a verb or an action. So that's how you might remember this match, right? Both affect and action start with A. So that's when we want to say that something is affecting something else. It's doing the affecting, okay? Now, effect with an E is a noun. And so it's like when something has an effect or the effect, right? When we see words like a, and, the, that usually means we're dealing with a noun, so that's a good sign, right? Think also maybe of special effects that are in movies, right? Those things, that's a thing. It's it's not something you can hold in your hand, but it's an idea, it's a concept, it's a noun. It's not an action. Okay, so that might be a little tricky still, but that's the rule. And I should say that there's actually an exception to this, where affect with an A can be a noun and effect with an E can be a verb. But if that comes up on the SAT, it's just going to be a nightmare. So I'm not even going to bring it up and explain it. You can look it up on the internet. It is unlikely that the exception will come up on the SAT. The regular rule is difficult enough. So now what we have to do is we have to look at this sentence and try to figure out if this word is behaving as a verb or an action or as a noun or a thing. Okay? So that's pretty easy to do here. In truth, the agency has a widespread effect on society. So it's correct as it is. And I know that there's all this extra stuff separating us from that word a, but these are just kind of adjectives describing the thing, the effect. It's widespread, it's positive, but it's still a thing that has those characteristics. So there you go. Now, that's tricky. It's a lot to memorize, and it's a very little reward for that memorization because the odds of you seeing this rule again are actually pretty slim. Odds are good on a test. You will see at least one question that tests some pair or triple of frequently confused words. It's unlikely that it'll be any particular rule, but it'll be something. And so it's kind of like you have to study a lot for a guaranteed 10 points on just one question. So in the grand scheme of your studying, this kind of thing is minor. You should not be wasting your time on this if you are still getting stuff wrong that involves pronouns or punctuation rules or any of the ideas questions that are about like dumb summaries. That's where you should be spending your time. Memorizing these little rules is not going to return a huge payoff. Many of them you'll actually know anyway just from experience of the language. So it's something you can do if you're at already like only 3 or 4 wrong per section and this is what's left. Then yeah, you got to put in the effort to really lock in that perfect score. But most of us, we can just keep on moving and not worry about stuff like this.